I'm confused. The numbers are the numbers.
What is confusing you? 2 + 2 = 4.
Whoa, what a dick.
So because Trump is incapable of consistently transforming the electrical impulses in his brain that I tepidly call thoughts into coherent sentences,
You know, if you're a conservative Republican, if I were a liberal, okay.
he's allowed another media frenzy to either honestly misunderstand or purposely misconstrue his statements about Sweden. Not that the media needs help in finding reasons to attack Trump.
If I ran as a liberal Democrat, they would say I'm one of the smartest people anywhere in the world. It's true.
However, Trump has brought up every anti-immigration and
Horrible racist
favorite talking point.
rape.
Specifically rape caused by dirty third-world brown types. Not rape by white people. That's just an urban legend. So the focus of this video isn't going to be so much on whether immigrants are responsible for an increase of sexual assaults in Sweden, rather on the debate tactics that went on between Don Lemon and Amy Schumer. And how all you internet armchair debaters encounter similar debate tactics when you waste your time talking to stupid people on the internet. Which is all people.
So the president sees your interview, which means you influenced him, the president of the United States, to spread, which really amounts to false information, right? How do you feel about being part of that?
Wow. So Don starts right off by calling Ami a liar. Right to his fucking face.
I mean, the whole thing is just surreal, right? I mean, it was a Saturday night, and I get a text from somebody, I think the president just referenced you, and then I went to it and I said, I'm not sure exactly what he was talking about, but clearly it seemed to be he was intimating this interview that we had with Tucker. So yeah, it's incredible, it's surreal. Yeah. It's unfortunate that he had the misstatement, but it's been all good for me.
Ami doesn't attack or defend against this. Either he thought it was a worthless comment, or he interpreted Don's false info statement to be referring to Trump's bungled words, not Ami reporting false information. Don later in the interview reveals he most likely meant the latter. Now, after some more talk of Trump's dumb comments, Don finally gets to attacking Ami openly.
Okay, so let's talk about the numbers here.
Yeah.
Because we looked at the stats from the U.S. Department, the State Department. Here's what we learned, all right? Crime rose about 7% from 2015. Much of that crime was nonviolent computer fraud and vandalism. In 2015, violent crime decreased slightly. There was no staggering increase. Where did you get your information, and did you look at the official number?
Don brings up the State Department's numbers on overall reported crime in Sweden. Remember that overall, because it's important for the rest of the interview. And the numbers show that overall, crime is going down. I'm yelling timber.
And did you look at the official number?
Yeah, from a far more accurate source, State Department. I don't know why the State Department is doing numbers for Sweden. I look at the Swedish, it's called BRA, B-R-A,
yeah, we have
which is the keeper of all stats for Sweden.
Right. Ami addresses this by dismissing the State Department's numbers and bringing up the BRA numbers. This, however, is a big mistake when it comes to debate tactics. Because the thing is, it's not that the State Department numbers are necessarily wrong. It's that they are irrelevant. Ami, as we're about to see, is specifically talking about increases in sexual assault and murder. Any trends in overall crime is irrelevant. Now, as you'll see, Ami does specify the two areas he's focusing on, but he doesn't specify why the overall numbers are irrelevant. Most likely because to Ami, this point is so obvious that the overall numbers are irrelevant that he assumes that everyone else will see them as irrelevant as well. However, as you're about to find out, because Ami did not clearly and specifically make this point, Don uses these overall numbers, purposely and dishonestly, in my opinion, to attack Ami's position for the rest of the interview, even though, as we said, the overall numbers are completely irrelevant to Ami's position.
So if you look at what I call heavy crime, so I'm talking about murder, I'm talking about sexual assault. Sexual assault from 2006 2015 is up almost 50%. Murder between 2012 and 2016 is up, I think, almost over 80%.
Yeah.
Now, so those are the real numbers.
Now, Ami has made one clarification and 2 points. The clarification is that he is only referring to murder and sexual assault. His 2 points are, sexual assault is up 50% from 2006 to 2016, and murder is up from 2012 to 2016 by 80%. Now there is, in my opinion, a dishonest tactic here that Don completely misses. Why is Ami using different time ranges? If his conjecture is that immigration is causing an increase in these crimes, shouldn't you be using the same time ranges for both stats? A quick explanation of where these numbers come from. This is the Swedish Crime Survey, also known as BRA. This chart details sexual offenses from 2005 to 2015. I assume the 50% number comes from that in 2006, 12,147 sexual offenses were reported, and in 2015, 18,057 offenses were reported. Do some math, and that's approximately a 50% increase. This is the chart for murder. Now we can see why Ami would choose to use 2012 as a starting point. In 2012, 68 people were murdered, and in 2015, 112 people were murdered, which is an increase of approximately 70%. But he says 2016, so I don't know. Maybe he has a translated version of the full report, and it has the 2016 numbers. Anyways, let's get back to it.
Those are the real numbers.
Yeah, well, the real numbers, they don't show up almost 80%. But if you look at also...
From 2012?
If you yes. And here are the numbers that you have. But anyway...
Here Don uses vagueness to his advantage. He says...
The real numbers, they don't show up almost 80%.
What numbers is he talking about? The BRA numbers? The State Department numbers? The overall numbers? What time period? I don't know, because he doesn't tell us. Ami immediately clarifies.
But if you look at also...
From 2012?
If you yes.
Don says yes, but gives no further explanation or clarification. As you'll see, Don immediately moves on to a different point. This is Ami's second mistake. If you're debating with someone and you can't agree with what the facts actually are, there's no point in continuing. The first thing that needs to be established is an agreed upon set of facts. Because if you're looking at different facts, obviously people will come to different conclusions.
But when you look at that, if you look at, especially when you consider the population of millions of people there,
yeah.
And there were maybe, 12 more murders. Of course it's going to spike, but there is, of course it's going to be higher, but that is not a spike in murders. When you look at the population and you look at, especially when you look at the population of immigrants in the country, which is probably like 1%.
No, it's way,
of,
no,
right.
no, it's way higher than that.
Okay, well if you look at the population of immigrants, there's no correlation between immigrants and a spike in crime, which there is no huge spike in crime there.
Don puts out 3 claims. 1. If a population has a low rate of something, like murder, then any slight increase will cause a spike, thus implying that said spike will be statistically irrelevant to explaining what the fuck is going on in Sweden. 2. There is no correlation between immigrants and a spike of crime. 3. There is no huge spike in crime. This is strange because his first point is that spikes don't matter, not that spikes don't exist. I guess he's just trying to cover all his bases or something. Now he's used the modifier huge, so maybe he meant that yes, a spike exists, it's just not huge. In my opinion, Ami should have used this opportunity to solidify Don's position, to again create solid ground for what the argument is actually about by asking Don something like, so you admit there was a spike, we're just debating on how big it is, or whether it is correlated to immigrants or not. Of course, Ami in this situation does not have future vision, and is still unaware of the pogo tactics Don is about to employ. But as you'll see, Don is not interested in solidifying his position, because if you have a solid position, it can be attacked. Don's tactic is to throw out as many different arguments as he can. That way, whenever Ami gets close to debunking one, Don can simply leap to another.
Which there is no huge spike in crime there.
Well,
the numbers don't show that. It shows that over an average, and I have the numbers here from 2006 to 2015.
Well, take a look at 2012.
That's on an average. There's on an average that there is no spike here. If you look at look at 2006, 2007, all the way on, yes, crime goes up and down as it does here in America and every single country. But if you look at that as an average, there is no spike in crime.
Now Don makes a 4th claim, one that absolutely makes no fucking sense. First, again, we have the clarification problem. Is he talking about BRA numbers or State Department numbers? Overall crime or just one category? Who the fuck knows? The graphics guy seems to think Don's talking about State Department numbers, which, as I've already explained, are irrelevant. Don then says,
crime goes up and down, as it does here in America and every single country. But if you look at that as an average, there is no spike in crime.
this is a nonsensical statement. A spike simply means a sharp increase or decrease in a set of numbers. You can average a set of numbers that have spikes in them. What I can only assume Don is doing is using the word spike incorrectly. The word he means to use is trend. Secondly, Don's entire concept about what the average shows makes no fucking sense. But I'm gonna let the clip play out before I get into that.
But if you look at that as an average, there is no spike in crime.
It's just not true. If you look at 2006, 2016, murder's up. From 2006 to 2015, rape is up 50%. How is that not a spike?
If you look at it overall,
That is overall.
Ami doesn't realize or point out Don's incorrect use of the word spike. Thus, we have two people arguing something when they are not using the same definitions. So Ami is clearly confused by Don's position and doesn't understand how he can say there is no spike, when clearly we all have eyes and can see that there is a spike.
If you look at it overall,
overall.
numbers go up every year, up and down every year.
Tide goes in, tide goes out. You can't explain that.
If you look at individual years, you can say, hold on, you can say numbers are up this year,
Right.
they're down this year,
Sure.
they're up this year,
Fair enough.
they're down. But if you look at them over a long period of time,
Right.
it's not up.
So I'm telling
Don, perhaps tellingly, drops the word spike. Maybe he finally realized he was using it incorrectly. Yet we see Don's entire concept of averages and what their significance is makes no fucking sense. He says if you look at the numbers over a long period of time, the numbers aren't up. Ami's assertion is that this recent wave of immigration has caused a new spike in crime. And immigration in Sweden has really picked up since 2012, which is where you see the sexual assault and murder numbers start to go up. So why would anyone, as Don suggests, add the numbers before the immigration increase into the pot, or the numbers during and after the immigration increase, and average them together? That makes no sense. What you do is you take the numbers before the immigration increase and compare them to the numbers during and after the immigration increase. Does Don really not understand how to use statistics and averages, or is he just being dishonest? What I like to call iOS, intentional or stupid. However, Ami doesn't directly attack Don's claim here, most likely because to Ami, the claim is so obviously stupid, it doesn't merit debunking, or even make sense for him in the moment in a way that he can think about debunking it. But as we'll see, this allows Don to keep returning to this nonsense point later.
Look at them over a long period of time.
Right.
It's not up.
So I'm telling you, rape is up from 2005.
I understand the numbers, but I can understand. But do you understand why? Do you understand why those numbers are up, though? You have to look within the numbers. It's because of the way that they classify.
No, that's untrue.
Okay.
No, let's be clear.
Now Don has begun his
Pogo dance.
Ami attempts to attack this average claim. He does this by once again trying to clarify his point by restating the time range of sexual assaults being up by 50% from 2005 to 2015. But before he can even finish that statement, Don immediately drops his bizarre claim about averages, maybe realizing it's bullshit, or maybe just continuing his pogo technique, and moves to another claim. That the sexual assault numbers are up because of how Sweden classifies sexual assault.
Rape is up from 2005.
I understand the numbers, but I can understand. But do you understand why? Do you understand why those numbers are up, though? You have to look within the numbers. It's because of the way that they classify.
No, that's untrue.
Okay.
No, let's be clear.
Again, Ami does not take this opportunity to nail Don down by asking him something like, so you admit the numbers are up, you just believe it's because of Sweden's broad classification of sexual assault. Instead, he gets drawn in and attacks this new claim first.
It's because of the way that they classify.
No, that's untrue.
Okay.
No, let's be clear. They changed the definition of rape in 2005. I'm talking about stats from 2006 to 2015, after the definition was changed.
Yeah.
The numbers from 2006 to 2015 are up 50%, and they're up every single year except for 2014 to 15, where there's a slight dip.
Okay.
Ami does, however, counter the claim that Sweden's changing of the sexual assault definition was done in 2005. Thus, if you're comparing the time periods of 2006 to 2010 to 2011 and 2016, the change of definition would have no impact, as both time periods exist after said change. Thus, the change in Sweden's sexual assault definition is irrelevant.
Okay. That's what the numbers. That's how you're reading the numbers.
That's a raw.
That's
Those
how,
are raw
that's not
numbers.
how the experts are reading the numbers. But here's the Swedish Prime Minister.
Dawn makes no attempt to defend against Ami's counter, but instead throws out yet another claim, this time about experts. What experts is he talking about? No clarification is given. Then he changes the subject to something irrelevant once again.
That's not how the experts are reading the numbers. But here's the Swedish Prime Minister. This was just said in response to President Trump.
Do not forget that in international rankings in issues such as equality, human development, competitiveness, we, like our guest today from Canada, are doing very well. So yes, we have opportunities, we have challenges, we're working with them every day, but I think also we must all take responsibility for using facts correctly and for verifying any information that we spread.
The Swedish Prime Minister is upset with, or at least is concerned about the president's classification, yours as well. They feel they're being unfairly targeted here. They say that the numbers don't match up to what you're saying. They don't deserve to be in the middle of this.
Yeah.
And that you've blown this out of proportion because you have some sort of agenda behind it. What do you say to them?
So in the clip of the Swedish Prime Minister, he does not refute any of the claims, only says, we score higher in lots of other unrelated areas. Dawn then throws out another claim, that Ami has some sort of insidious agenda, which is why he's manipulating the information. Of course, Dawn says it in the age-old reporter way, I'm not saying you're a piece of shit, someone else is saying you're a piece of shit. How do you respond?
But hey, I'm just a normal kid, like you, except that I ask questions.
You have some sort of agenda behind it. What do you say to them?
I think he's looking at, he said happiness is up in my country, and that's supposed to be some kind of barometer for rape and murder being up. I mean, we can go over these numbers back and forth, but again, I feel bad kind of repeating the same number again. But what I'm telling you is the overall number after the change definition from 2006 to 2015 is up
no
50%.
Now Ami does a good job of not getting aggressive towards Dawn's dickish attack on him, and also does not allow himself to be sidetracked, quickly swatting away the irrelevance of the Swedish Prime Minister's statement. He then attacks the no spike claim by reiterating his position. The sexual assault numbers from 2006 to 2015 are up by 50%.
After the change definition from 2006 to 2015 is up 50%.
You're making a correlation to immigrants. There's no
So that's a different question. We didn't talk about that.
There's no correlation to immigrants.
Oh, I disagree. I think there's an absolute correlation. Now, we were talking...
But the evidence doesn't show that.
What evidence?
The numbers that...
Ami seemingly has defeated the no spike claim, but Dawn hasn't defended the claim. Dawn instead responds,
You're making a correlation to immigrants. There's no
So that's a different question. We didn't talk about that.
So Ami does the right thing here and tries to solidify and lock down Dawn's position.
So that's a different question. We didn't talk about that. We talked about...
So close.
Talk about that.
There's no correlation to immigrants.
Oh, I disagree. I think there's an absolute correlation. Now, we were talking...
So close.
An absolute correlation. Now, we were talking...
But the evidence doesn't show that.
No, God!
What evidence?
The numbers that...
Sidetracked.
There's an absolute correlation. Now, we were talking...
But the evidence doesn't show that.
What evidence?
The numbers that, according to the broad numbers that I have here, and the numbers from the State Department, they don't show a correlation between immigrants.
They don't talk about immigrants in any of the statistics. Nothing here mentions the word immigrants.
Dawn has backtracked onto the claim that the numbers don't show a correlation, without directly stating that there is in fact a spike. Ami responds with, "Of fucking course they don't. The numbers make no mention of immigrants one way or the other. Dawn, what the fuck are you talking about?" Ami then, however, brings up a new point, instead of solidifying his original point. The numbers don't talk about immigration one way or the other.
Nothing here mentions the word immigrants. In fact, it's interesting. In 2001, BRA used to have a classification for what the backgrounds of the people committing the crimes. Because the numbers of immigrants were so high, they stripped that from those numbers. Those numbers don't mention immigrants, so of course there's not going to be any correlation in those numbers. But the correlation comes from other places.
Now here's Don's chance to finally move the debate forward. To say, okay, we agree on the raw numbers, but where does the correlation come from? Do ya think he does that, kids?
Of course there's not going to be any correlation in those numbers, but the correlation comes from other places.
But the most recent terror attack in Sweden was actually an anti-immigrant terror attack.
I didn't know. Yes,
Yeah.
from other places.
But the most recent terror attack in Sweden was actually an anti-immigrant terror attack.
I didn't know. Yes,
Yeah, in January, three suspected neo-Nazis were arrested after bombing an immigrant asylum center in Gothenburg.
That's horrific.
So if you were
That's
looking,
horrible.
if you were looking for the roots of the crime,
Yeah.
there's also issues when it comes for anti-immigrant crime as well.